Yeah, so Marketplace Fairness Act really talks about the notion of taxing internet sales. And a little bit of background, two talking points. The first is that states need revenue. We know that. There's still a $55 to $70 billion revenue gap between 32 states, so they need revenue. And then the second thing is this notion of brick and mortar stores feeling as if they were at a disadvantage where they had to charge sales tax and internet sellers didn't. So Marketplace Fairness Act really does three things. It grants the authority of states to require remote retailers to collect sales tax. The definition of a remote retailer is anybody who has conducts interstate commerce on property and services. And it effectively does away with nexus for sales tax, meaning that in nexus we could have an hour-long conversation on, but meaning you don't have to have a physical presence in a state or a relationship with a state to require sales tax to be collected. The other hurdle today, the way the law is written that went to the House, states that you have to have remote sales greater than $1 million, including exemptions. So if you sold to nonprofits, if you sold to somebody for resale, those sales would be included in this barrier or hurdle of $1 million. And then the last area is that it really doesn't affect state taxability rules around products. So they're still in existence. It's just granting the authority of states to tax remote retailers, or hence internet sales. That's a good question. I think from a CPA perspective, what you want to be able to do is to answer your client's questions. And you want to answer it in a way that's accurate and obviously professional. And so what I tell CPAs is really being aware that the law has, the way it exists today, the way the law exists in the Senate, that it has $1 million threshold, that's including exemption certificates, is one point of reference. And then the second is that regardless of what your client sells, the product, the existing state product taxability rules apply. So if I'm a company and I'm selling into California, California law applies to those products just as if it would today. The last thing that I think a CPA should be aware of is that just like anything with sales tax, it's really state dependent. So adoption is state dependent. And those states that are part of streamlined sales tax will have a very easy adoption. And there's 23 or 26 states that are part of that. Maryland adopted it and then said that they would adopt it fully if Congress accepted it for the nation, which Congress hasn't. And so it means that Maryland still is not part of streamlined sales tax, but they effectively adopted the provision several years ago. But that's what a CPA needs to be aware of. If you're a company selling over the internet, you just need to be aware that at some point in time when the law passes, you're going to be required to collect sales tax and then remit and file returns perhaps in jurisdictions that you haven't been filing already. Well, I think the way the law is written, it implies that services can be taxable, because what it says is that any interstate commerce on property or products or services, that's just legalese. Effectively, the taxability of services will be state dependent, and each individual state will still set those laws and guidelines and so forth. Now, with that said, as we all know, states need revenue, and I think at the same time they've considered taxing internet transactions, they've also considered taxing services, but there are two separate and distinct areas. Yeah, now that the bill is in the House, like any bill, it's likely to change, and the House will put their stamp on it. They'll change it. They may accept it. They may not accept it, but it's apt to change. And then there'll be some reconciliation with the Senate bill, and if it gets to that point, then it would be put on the desk of the president to be signed. And we really have no idea when that may take place. It could be 7 months from now, it could be a year from now. We really don't have an idea on that.